So I guess this is like the first real indie game review video on this channel. I don't know, I never really thought I would become like a video game reviewer. I just like talking about things that I really like. And so I really want to talk about this neat game called Post-Void. Now, huge heads up to those who are photosensitive or just really dislike flashing like lights and lots of bright flashing colors. Please just skip this video. Do not even bother watching it. It is really bad. This game has a lot of flashing lights and they are completely unavoidable. And even for those who aren't photosensitive, it's still really bright. It's gonna kill the bitrate. It's probably going to hurt your eyes. So please keep in mind there are a lot of flashing lights in the background footage I use here. It's just part of the game. There's a lot of just bright colors, constant. There's a lot of things going on. So again, please, huge warning. Keep that in mind while watching this video. Again, if you're epileptic, photosensitive, just don't bother watching. I'll see you guys next time. We'll have a cool video next week or something like that, or in a few days. Just skip it. Alright, so anyways, back to what I was saying. Post-Void is a really neat roguelike with an extreme style, great gameplay, and also an amazing single song that I really like. And I'll go over what I think makes this such a great game, and overall, just talk about a game that, assuming you aren't photosensitive, you will probably like and should totally check out. Let's start with the gameplay and the story, I guess. Upon opening the game, you're met with an interesting cutscene describing a very interesting poem. Despite how abstract and strange it is to read and see as well, you actually get a good idea of what you need to do as the player. You need to go to the void to create this flower that will grow this dimension of eternal peace and tranquility and forever happiness. However, your character needs to do this by carrying this head, known as the idol, which is full of life, so you can plant it in place. You have to crush it when you get to the end. However, to get there, you need to go through a bunch of corridors filled with violence and enemies, and it is a time known as Post-Void and a place known as Post-Void. I really like how this whole cutscene is very stylized. It captures the essence of the game very well, which is just very abstract and weird as hell. But, you know, it still tells you kind of what you need to do, and it still makes perfect sense. It also makes my thumbnails a lot easier because it's already black and white, so yippee, my job's easier. Anyways, after that cutscene, you're given a tutorial and then thrust into the game. The game is pretty simple. I'll break it down into like the basics. You have the enemies and map design, and that's about it. You need to basically go from one end of the map to the other into like this blue portal thing, and then you go to the next level. And after 11 levels, you beat a quote run. It's a roguelike, so you know I'm sure you already know how it kind of goes. However, you can't take your time as you have this little idol in your hand, and this idol essentially is like a countdown, like it's a timer. And as you spend time in a level, it will slowly go down because juice is pouring out of it. Now, why your character isn't holding it upside down to make sure no juice comes out of it, I don't know. But when it reaches 0 and the idol runs out of juice and it shows this 3, 2, 1 thing, and there's no more time left, you die and you have to restart. Now, there are things that make this game even harder. There are a variety of weapons, and if they hit you, you actually lose time in your idol and it goes to 0 faster. And if you kill them, you actually get some of that life back, so you can actually get life and make it so that, you know, because you're probably going to need to kill a bunch of enemies to ensure that it goes, whatever, I'll talk more about it later. And then the maps as well get longer, more complex, and it makes it easier to die due to like just not having enough life to get to the end because it's just a longer level, and you might even just get lost at some point and get turned around weirdly, which has happened many times in my playthroughs. However, to balance this, at the end of each level, players are shown 3 upgrades that they can choose from. You can only choose one. These upgrades can range from like having more life or time in your idol to being able to see the general direction of the end of each level, or even just changing your weapon entirely, or, you know, there's a bunch of things. And each one is equally viable and has their own pros to them. And in general, yeah, that's the gist of the game. Now let's talk about what each little individual factor makes this game so great and see what makes it so special. Let's start with the enemies. I think this is a fantastically great concept, like a really well done thing in this game. So there are a variety of enemies in the game. More of them will show up and different types will show up later. And the thing about these enemies is that they give you an extremely interesting like dilemma for the player upon seeing them. With every enemy you are given, you have like a choice. You can either shoot them and get some time or life, assuming you don't miss, with the risk of losing time because you get shot or just spent too long trying to kill them. Or you can run away, not getting any time, but most likely not risking your health. Sometimes they can still get you, and I'll talk more about that later. This dilemma is already an interesting game choice as it makes the player think quickly on their feet, and there are a variety of factors that change the dynamic of this dilemma, making some options seem more appealing than others, or changes how some players face this problem entirely. This can range from things such as enemy types, placement of enemies, current time left, level count, and so on. Let's start with enemy types. The first enemy type a player will encounter is a quote suit. These are pretty easy to kill as they have a large head, making an insta-kill headshot easy, meaning you can get life back, and their bullets are easy enough to dodge if you move around enough and you're quick enough to react, and this makes killing them usually a more valuable and less risky option, as even if you take like a shot from them, I think you gain a bit more health or you don't lose too much time, so you're totally fine most of the time, and usually you'll get them pretty easily. However, there are times where shooting them is a bigger waste of time. Sometimes you have to anyways because they're in front of you, but that's excluding that I guess scenario. There are times where they're placed in annoying parts of the map where it requires you to turn away from the main direction, leaving you exposed and making it risky to kill them. And in addition, sometimes it also just takes time for them to or it takes you time to just aim for their head in that weird spot, or even just slightly weird spots. And so it just makes it not worth it, and so you run away. Or sometimes you'll just miss like me, and then you'll just be like, ah, screw it, it's not worth it, and then run away. And with this added risk, they might hit you for a bit too while you're running away. Sometimes you also have to be like, okay, well, do I just want to, do it now or later, or just not deal with it at all? I don't know. You get the general idea. There are other enemies, however, that also change this dilemma in interesting ways too. For example, the flamingo enemy. This enemy will chase you down for as long as it can, pretty quickly too. It's a little slower than you, and usually you can barely gain any distance from it, and it's barely slower than you. So if it appears in front of you, you can't dodge it and you're forced to kill them, usually getting life and a little damage sometimes in the process if you're unlucky. However, sometimes they come around from corners and they'll follow you like your tail. And this would require you to turn around while running backwards to shoot them. And as we've mentioned before, it's risky. And so you just basically let it chase you around, at least I do, the whole time. However, this creates an interesting problem where any slowdown can make it so that you will immediately take damage from whatever slows you down. And then the flamingo that's chasing you will catch up to you and then also do more damage. This can be from things like wrong turns or just getting hit by bullets or other enemies, meaning you'll take more damage. Sometimes you have to get rid of the flamingos following you and take a small risk so you ensure that you won't take more damage later on, and then you end up losing a run. And so that's kind of what I mean by interesting dilemma. Now again, there are also other things as well. Sometimes different weapons can make it easier or harder to hit enemies. For example, the shotgun makes it so that if an enemy's far away, just don't even bother, but if it's close, hey, maybe not, why not? It won't hurt. You don't have to aim as much. So yeah, there are a bunch of other enemies too, like these little annoying telehand things. These are some of the worst enemies in the game in my opinion, alongside the bulb hands, which just flashbang you. And in my opinion, they're just awful to deal with. They fly around somewhat slowish, and when they are in melee range, they do a little bit of damage and also blind you and slow you. And they also travel in packs as well. These enemies are basically these enemies, just run unless you have a shotgun or something that makes it way easier to kill them, like explosive bullets, as hitting them with anything but the shotgun or explosive bullets is basically freaking impossible, or the Uzi, I guess. And yeah, and you can easily get damaged if you touch one, and then a flamingo group chases you because you forgot to kill them. There's a lot of dynamics and interesting things with every run, every room, every hallway. There's just so much the enemy placements and how the character interacts with enemies that makes this game so interesting, especially when you change your weapon type too. As I've kind of mentioned before, you can mindlessly aim at things and it becomes easier to kill, but you kind of have to conserve your ammo. So, or sometimes you just have to kill whatever you see to ensure that your idol is, you always want to kill as much stuff as possible, but you also want to make sure that you don't lose as much, you lose as little as possible. And so I just think that in general, the game handles quick thinking and combat in a very well done way, and it just makes you have to think a lot and think on the move. And I just really wanted to talk about this interesting dynamic and dilemma that it places the player in with each enemy. Now, the next thing is map design, which is going to sound really weird for a procedurally generated and random roguelike, but I think it has to be said for this game how amazingly well done it is and how unique the game design is, or the design of the maps is throughout the game, my bad. For the entire game, your whole objective is really simple. Get to the end as fast as you can and survive. Now, the problem is that the map is very windy and almost maze-like, and how, despite the fact of how, and you've probably seen in the background footage for yourself, how windy and insane the map is, you can always kind of intuitively know where to go, no matter how confusing the level might seem. The early levels are pretty simple, as they introduce no verticality like the later levels. And these levels, even though they're the early ones, they still feel very maze-like, but you kind of just know where to go, even though because they're still straight lines. And there are no alternate paths that lead to dead ends, and then you end up losing because you don't have enough time. It feels very maze-like, but at the same time you kind of know where you're going, and I really like how it does that. And there are lots of turns and different room types as well to make this feel even more like a maze. And then later levels they use verticality, and then your brain gets even more confused. but despite that, you still kind of know where you need to go. Like, you get the general direction, despite the fact that the rooms might look so confusing or convoluted or windy and etc. And so it's just very fascinating how the level designs in this game are so confusing and make you feel so lost, but so like not lost at the same time. Now, there are times where you will get like turned around by enemies or something like that, or like you'll just straight up get lost. But there is a way that to balance out the fact that you might get lost occasionally. They do give you a compass upgrade occasionally, which can just tell you where the end is, like generally speaking, which is very nice for newer players because it can be very difficult to navigate. So having this upgrade can really help, and I just love how just windy and almost like the back rooms this kind of game feels. So yeah, I just really want to talk about it. I just really like the map design in this game. I just think it's very well done because you constantly feel lost, but you know where you need to be at the same time. The next thing I really wanted to talk about is the visual aesthetic to this game, which I actually really appreciate a lot. If you've seen the background footage, you probably already know what it looks like, but I think it's very visually distinct with very bright colors and constant flashes, which punish you for spraying if you're curious. Like every shot, I remember my brother turned off the lights just to see I was playing this game. Every shot I took, every shot like just freaking flashbang me like that dude from the CS:GO video. Every enemy though, design-wise, is very unique and it's very poppy and colorful, and they stick out very well. Like I think it's meant to overall the bright colors of the background are meant to kind of contrast the overall violent nature of the game. And it feels a lot like the back rooms with the ways the walls are painted and textured along with the floors, and the map design especially helps complement this. And I love the sprites. Again, everything feels like strangely organic. You know, the idol, for example, or like environmental bits like the lamps and stuff you'll occasionally see. I just think the art style speaks for itself, honestly. Everything about this game just like works to create this very hypnotic and hallucinogenic, drug statey feel. It literally feels like an LSD trip, but it feels like that in a good way. The other thing though I want to talk about is the soundtrack, which I found that to be such a unique and fun soundtrack to listen to while playing such a crazy game. It's this really cool droning punk kind of song, and it isn't complex enough where you need to like enjoy it. You can only enjoy it when you're like listening close and understanding every little like part of it, but it isn't so simple that it becomes background noise and you forget the song completely. And I think it just works really well with the entire game, and it just further emphasizes this very unique style of like violence and chaos and stuff, and you can kind of tell where they get their inspiration from too if you take a listen to their unofficial OST, which has this one song called Serafina, which the guitars and I guess the instrumentals as a whole just sound very similar to this main theme. They also have a bunch of other things that I can appreciate, like Death Grips, which yeah, my brother knows a lot more about them, and they're really out there, but I still really appreciate every song they put in there, and the unofficial OST as a whole, I think, just perfectly complements the game. Well, as I end this video off, I think assuming you can handle the bright flashing lights, you should totally buy this game and check it out. Beating it isn't too hard once you use the cheese build, like Uzi, rubber bullets, explosive enemies, and then just spam magazine upgrades. I did it, it was a breeze. But all in all, I just really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you buy the game, I hope you just understand why I like this game so much, and I'll see you guys next time.